Imagine staring down a horrific death just because you refuse to bend the knee. Hey everyone, welcome to This Explainer. Today we're jumping right into one of the most cinematic, edge-of-your-seat moments in all of Scripture. We're going to see how a really mysterious ancient event, one that's honestly captivated Christians for centuries, ultimately points straight to Jesus Christ. 3 men, no trial, 0 chance of escape. Let's set the scene here. You've got this wildly powerful pagan king who builds a massive golden statue and demands that his entire empire worship it. Everyone obeys, well, almost everyone. 3 young Hebrew men refuse to bow down, and that refusal comes with an unavoidable and frankly horrifying death sentence.
Now, to truly get the stakes of this moment, we kind of need to rewind for a second. Jerusalem is fallen, and the temple is destroyed. That lands us in our present context. God's people are living as captives under foreign rule in the Babylonian exile, and that sparks the immediate crisis. King Nebuchadnezzar issues his decree, forcing a whole empire to worship a golden idol.
All right, so that brings us to Section 1, the king's command.
The choice he gives them is stark and brutal. Bow to the golden image or burn alive in the furnace. When the music cues up, everybody else hits the dirt. But Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they just keep standing. Obviously, word of this defiance gets right back to the most powerful man on earth, and he gives them one final, furious ultimatum.
But these guys, their response is legendary. They basically tell him, look, our God is totally able to save us from this fire, but even if he doesn't, we're still not serving your gods. Think about how profound that is. They know God can save them, but even if he chooses not to, they're not budging. That is the ultimate definition of bulletproof faith.
And that bold stand launches us right into Section 2, Faith in the Fire. So, as you can probably guess, Nebuchadnezzar absolutely loses it. He's enraged. So what does he do? He orders his men to crank the furnace up 7 times hotter than normal. 7 times.
To put that insane heat into perspective, the flames are so incredibly fierce that the actual soldiers who are carrying the bound Hebrews to the furnace, they're killed instantly. The heat is literally lethal before Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego even hit the floor of the fire.
Which brings us to the wildest part of the story, Section 3, the 4th man.
So the king is watching all this go down, right? And suddenly, he just leaps up from his throne in total, absolute shock. He's staring into this roaring inferno, and he realizes there's someone else in there. Who on earth was standing in the fire?
We actually have this absolute miracle recorded directly in the king's own bewildered words. He says, wait, didn't we throw 3 bound men in there? Because I see 4 men, unbound, walking around in the fire, perfectly fine. And the 4th one, he looks like a son of the gods. Nebuchadnezzar is literally watching a divine presence with his own 2 eyes.
Let's just pause and review the facts here, because they're mind-blowing. 3 guys go in tied up. 4 guys are now walking around freely. The fire is raging completely out of control all around them, but miraculously, not a single one of them is being consumed. Somebody else is in there with them.
Which naturally begs the question, right? Let's get into Section 4, Interpreting the Mystery.
Historically, faithful Christians have kind of landed in 2 main camps on this one. On one side, you've got the angelic protector view. They point out that later in the chapter, the king himself says God sent his angel to save them. But then, on the other side, many view this as a Christophany. That's just a fancy theological word for a pre-incarnate, visible appearance of Jesus Christ himself, stepping in to protect his people centuries before he was ever born in Bethlehem.
But honestly, Scripture doesn't force us to perfectly solve this debate. And there's a really good reason for that, because the primary point of the story isn't actually about getting the exact ID of the guy. It's all about God's presence. The main takeaway is that God himself was tangibly right there with his people in the absolute darkest, worst trial of their lives.
And that leads us to our final thought today, Section 5, Jesus in the Shadows. Check out these parallels. It's like a giant puzzle fitting perfectly together. Just like that 4th man suddenly appeared in the midst of fiery suffering, Jesus literally enters into our human suffering. And just as that insane fire couldn't destroy the men in the furnace, the cold grave ultimately could not hold or conquer Christ. This whole crazy historical rescue from Babylon, it points straight as an arrow to the ultimate promise Jesus makes to his followers in Matthew 28. I am with you always. This is the exact comfort we can lean on today when we face our own persecution, our own fears, and our own suffering.
Notice something really important here, though.
God's presence didn't actually give them a free pass to avoid the fire, did it? No, it kept the fire from overcoming them. The gospel doesn't promise us a life that's completely free of the furnace, but it promises us something so much better. Christ standing right there in the flames with us, making sure those trials don't ultimately destroy us.
So, the greatest wonder of this whole story isn't just playing detective to figure out exactly who that fourth man was. It's standing in total awe of a God who refuses to abandon us when the flames rise. Every shadow in Scripture points to him. So, I'll leave you with this. When you find yourself thrown into the fires of life, who is it that you're looking for in the flames?